Up next, we actually have a panel discussion. Now, I know none of you in this room will identify with "this wasn't my plan." It's not my plan panel. And so these are just three women. Sometimes we find ourselves in spaces where we just say like, hey, this wasn't my plan, or this isn't how I was planning on doing this. I know sometimes even as we are thinking about when we're going to start doing more things for God, right? We want to hit a breaking point. Like, when I'm done with college, when my kids are grown, when I'm married, when I, have extra time in life, like we find all of these things. Like, once I have this plan, then God can do this. And yet so often, we find ourselves in these spaces where it's like, this wasn't my plan. So, anyways, these three women are going to share with us this morning, and Kara's going to give us just a quick introduction of each of them.
So the whole concept of not my plan, it kind of feels like in the theme of Ripple in the sense of, every person in here has had their plan disrupted. I love my team at work because I have submitted to the unknown and the ambiguity of life, but some of the women that I work with, we wrestle with that together, and wanting a plan and wanting our plan to go the way that we want it to go. And God likes to wreck that and wreck us a little bit so that we can learn to trust Him. Somebody said to me this week, the greatest act of faith is trusting God. And you can't trust Him until He does wreck your plan. So that's what we're going to hear about right now. We're going to have each of you just tell a little bit about yourself. So I'll let you introduce yourself, and then just talk about why you're in a space where you're not on your plan.
Well, my name is December West. I'm a girl from Philadelphia. Was born and raised there. Had a mom who was very abusive, and my dad was kind of in and out of my life. So growing up, my plan was to just do me. And one of the things was, and it's crazy when you talk about therapists, I told my therapist this week, my plan growing up was to be everything that my mother wasn't. She didn't make it to school. She had her first kid when she was 16, and I did everything opposite of that. I made it to college and did different things, but then throughout my life, I had different challenges, and I was like, I wanted to have a child without a husband because, who needs a man? Just have me and my baby, that's it. But God, it's like, when God is like, has a plan for you and He sees the end from the beginning, He's amazing. Part of that plan was when I was 27, I never thought I would be married. I thought I thought I was going to be single, as the young lady Erin said earlier. I thought I was going to be single for the rest of my life. I was cool with it because I had been in so many different bad relationships, from abusive to, it was just crazy. I was just happy with me being just me and God, but God. So quickly about our marriage, which was crazy, is that the first time I ever kissed my husband was on our wedding day, but it was because I wanted that. It was something that I prayed for because I had been through so much stuff before that I was just like, all right, God, I want somebody who I know loves me and not for what I could do, and God answered that. That was a part of His plan. Then I have 5 beautiful children, and growing up, because of some of the things, I was pregnant at 16, had to have an ectopic pregnancy, so the doctor said that you would never, if you would have a kid, it would be very hard, but God made it where I have 5 beautiful children, which in itself is amazing. And then from that, so sometimes it's so funny, someone says, when you tell God your plan, you should He laughs at it, because if it was up to me, I probably would be in Philadelphia somewhere doing something crazy, but God had it fit to have me sitting on this stage with these beautiful women, so that's the beginning.
I told December I was never jealous of anyone's name until I met her. It's like, could you imagine how cool I would be if my name was December West? It's amazing. My name is Hannah, and I've had the honor of getting to help Noelle with these, being behind the stage and behind the scenes. And this year when she was talking about not my plan, she said, if I had to think of one person this year whose life is not going according to their plan, it's you. I was like, thanks, Noelle. So I got to join this, and I think the shortest summary that I could give about how my life isn't my plan sometimes feels hard to share, because I know that the piece for me that's not my plan is a good thing, and it's what a lot of women want. So it's hard sometimes to share it because I feel conflicted that it has been hard for me. I never wanted to be a mom. I never wanted to have kids. And when I push a little deeper on that, I really struggled with being a woman. And that goes deep. I can remember at such a young age hearing how men talked versus how women talked. I can remember being at a family event and hearing men talk about politics and about their jobs and careers and goals. And I remember hearing women talk about what diet they were on. I'm dead serious. I remember that day. And I thought, I want to be like them. I want to be strong. I want to have a career. I want to talk about things that matter. And I don't want to waste my time worrying about stuff that doesn't matter, like taking care of other people, like my diet. I just felt so drawn to want to do big and powerful things. And in my mind, that was to downplay the feminine and to be masculine and to grow in my career and to run the world. So as Jesus really got a hold of my heart, I still had that, but it was a spiritual twist to it. I wanted to rule the world for Jesus. I wanted to do kingdom-changing work, and I wanted to work with powerful men and women who love the Lord and were doing awesome things, and I was like, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of the radical for Jesus. I want to be on top of what God is doing. So as that passion developed in me, any desire to have children felt like that would just slow me down. Do you ever look at a mom with young kids and think like, that looks fun and easy? Like, no, you're like, that looks distracting, and like they're not getting anything done or showering. So why would I do that? Why would I do that? So it was a very spiritual reason why I didn't want to have kids. And so last year, my husband and I found out we were pregnant. And there was a piece of me that felt peace, because I thought, this is clearly what God wants. Like, that's what I've prayed every day, is that my life would be what God wants. So if he knocked me up, I guess this is what I'm supposed to do. But it was hard, and friends, every day it was not my plan. Pregnancy made me realize that I was a woman. It pushed into the feminine. It brought out emotions. It brought out me not being in control. I was really sick throughout my pregnancy. I had a high-risk pregnancy, so I was at the doctor 2 times a week my whole pregnancy, and it just started taking over my life before this thing even came out of me. And I just was like, this is not my plan. I can't be productive. I all of a sudden was having to turn down work and not spend as many hours running around, and I needed naps. I was so frustrated. I was like, why is this happening? God, I'm doing so much good for you. Why would you slow me down? That was really the first piece of not my plan, was having this baby. When I had him, I would do it 100 times over. His name is Harvey, and he's going to change the world, and he's amazing. But it was difficult, and I really loved Harvey, but I hated when people called me mom. When people would say, hey, mama, how are you feeling? I would be so angry inside. I'm like, that's not who I am. I'm Hannah. I'm a kingdom changer. I'm not just a mom like everyone else. this second wave really hit of not being my plan. When I went back to work, I was so ready to prove to everyone that this wasn't going to change how much I accomplished. Right. Do you know that doesn't work? I didn't know that. Right. Every month got harder. I got more and more bitter. My husband would go work these 12-hour days of work and not think about Harvey, and I was like, oh, was that nice going to work for 12 hours? I had to sit in a back room with my shirt off, pumping my breasts because of our son. It was like he just took over everything, and I couldn't be as productive, and I had to turn down client work. I remember having to leave a meeting because Harvey was sick and crying and wouldn't take a bottle from his sitter. And I screamed the whole way home. I was like, God, I am trying to do work for you. Why do I have to go take care of this baby? Fast forward to a month ago, Noelle made me go away for a retreat because I felt like my whole life was falling apart and I was just angry. And it was the first time since having Harvey that I sat down and prayed, I'll be honest, because I felt like, God, you wanted me to have this kid. This isn't my plan, okay, but can we just stop it there? And God told me to let go of my biggest client. I did that on a Tuesday, and on a Thursday, my other job, out of nowhere, let me go. So the woman who had always been defined by not having kids and having some pretty awesome jobs now had a baby and no job. And this is still really fresh. This only happened a month ago. So there's a lot more to that story and a lot more God's doing, but why I'm on a panel is called Not My Plan is because I have a baby and no job.
Thanks, Anna.
Yeah.
Good morning, guys. I hope you guys are enjoying this. It's a big old cry fest, right? I love it. We all get to connect up here. My name is Jennifer. That's my oldest daughter out there. I am a single mom of 3 beautiful children. That was Sierra that said that's my mom. She calls me mom. She is not British. Trust me, there is no British in our family. A lot of everything else, but no British. I have Caitlin and Chloe. They're 12 and 10. And I am up here as not my plan because my whole life has not been my plan. Oh boy, where do we start? I was telling my best friend Julie, I was like, my life is so concentrated, how do I condense it all into 5 minutes? Let's see, I'm the oldest of 6 kids, 5 girls, 1 boy, but we were taken away when I was 9, back in 1988, and I went to live with my grandma. So there's a lot of brokenness in my family, very dysfunctional, and I am trying really hard up here to break the generational pattern. Yeah. God, I remember growing up, even with my grandmother, God was not, in our home. No Bibles, but in our house we have 6. And we go to church and we worship and love the Lord. And that's why I'm up here, because throughout my life I always thought, I am not going to be like my family. I am going to go to college, and I did. I got a full scholarship to Malone. But then I gave up that scholarship to raise my 8-year-old brother because my mother was incapable. And then back in 2010, my grandmother passed away, and that sent me on a really bad downward spiral and started some more of not my plan. I made some very, very poor decisions and got into a big depression. I was hearing Gail talk about being depressed, and I heard Erin talk about her body, and I was an emotional eater. I used to weigh close to 500 pounds, and I had that gastric bypass. So that was an addiction to food, and I covered up a lot of my numbness in my life with food. And then when I took away my food, I started some other poor decisions too and covered up other things. So there's a lot of reason of not being my plan, but I heard a motivational speaker last weekend. I don't know if you guys know who, let me get this right, Nick Yokovic? Am I getting this right? He was talking about in 2019, everybody is broken. We are either broken from abuse, we are broken from divorce, we're broken from a cheating husband, we're broken from something. And we bond together, and God is going to use that brokenness, and what Satan meant from bad, he is going to use for good. So.
All right. That is a brilliant introduction. I almost forgot I was asking the next question. So something inquiring minds want to know is, in this process of recognizing that you're not in charge of the plan, what did it look like in that moment that you submitted?
January was really bad for me. I feel like I hit the peak of bitterness there, really. I felt frustrated that I couldn't do as much as I wanted. I felt frustrated that I was turning down clients and projects and like good kingdom-changing things that I couldn't do. And when I went on this retreat, I just want to read to you what I wrote. What I wrote to God. I miss the old me. I'm wasting a lot of time. It's hard for me to be happy. I don't feel like myself trying to be a mom. My life stopped because I'm a woman. I'm the mom. My husband's continues. I'm not as powerful as I used to be. I'm fat and no longer attractive. My day-to-day with Harvey doesn't matter. It has no eternal impact. My dreams have been replaced with Harvey. I don't know how to deal with feelings of sadness. I'm weak. Making money makes me matter, and I'm not making as much anymore. If I'm not happy, I'm not Hannah. I just didn't get it. I felt like everything in my life of how I identified myself and how I saw myself, of passions I had, of things that I felt like the Lord built me to do were taken. And I was given this cute, adorable 6-pound baby, but it felt like, God, I want this Ripple to be meaningful. I know I'm supposed to disciple him, but he can't even talk yet. Like, can't someone take him and do the meaningless stuff, like the diapers and the crying and the breastfeeding, while I go do kingdom-changing work? Like, can I help Noelle do more conferences while someone else holds my crying baby? Why is my time being wasted this way? Guys, on that retreat, it was the first time that I was honest with God about how frustrated I was with his plan. I was like, God, women pray for this. I have friends who lose babies. I have friends who want babies, and you've given me one, and I'm not sure if I want him. On that retreat, it was the first time that that I really even began a surrender. That I said, Lord, this is how I'm feeling, and I know this is not how you want me to feel. On that retreat, God had me read this tiny 50-page book, and I only got 20 pages in, which is kind of embarrassing, called The Theology of the Ordinary. And I picked it up because I hated the title. I am a woman of passion and excitement. I hate being like everyone else. I always want to be the loud one and the fun one. And as I'm sitting there with my son, missing out on the fun, I thought, my life is so freaking ordinary. I am like every other white woman in Akron now. And when I picked up this book, A Theology of the Ordinary, God took that pain and those ugly, honest thoughts that I had, and he taught me 3 things that literally changed my whole life. Like, I walked out of that retreat, and instead I filled my pages with, I matter. What I'm doing with Harvey does matter. Like, I don't always have to be happy, but when I have Christ's joy, I can have a deeper meaning in this. He taught me things, guys, that I can't even explain. The first he taught me is that limits are a good thing, and he designed them. Did you know that? I didn't know that. He taught me that Adam and Eve were designed with limits on purpose so that their relationship with him was right. I never had limits before, and now I did, and I was frustrated by them. And he said, Hannah, those I made, those are good. The second thing that he taught me was that he doesn't need me to do anything. Did you know that? I didn't know that! Like, I thought, I knew my salvation wasn't connected to what I did, but I was like, but then he made me really cool. Like, he gave me all of these passions and skills and talents, and if I'm not using them for the kingdom, I'm wasting them. And God said, Hannah, you don't have to do anything. That's in the Bible. I didn't know this. Romans 12:3, the only accurate way to understand ourselves is by what God is and what he does for us, not by what we are and what we do for him. I'm sorry, what? I spent my whole life doing good things for him. It wasn't for me, it was for him. But I felt like that was who I was, and God said that wasn't it. I don't have to do anything. The third thing he taught me is that I worship him in the ordinary. Like everyday freaking ordinary things, like changing my baby's diaper. I thought I had to be doing like leading conferences. I didn't know that when I do everyday things, Romans 12:1, take your everyday ordinary life, your sleeping, eating, going to work, walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. Embracing what God does for you is the best thing you can do for him. So, man, I left that retreat, and that's how I knew I was supposed to let go of this client that I couldn't keep up with. I surrendered. I took the thing that I cared about most, my job, and I surrendered it. I came home to my husband, and I got on my knees, and I said, I'm so sorry. I've been competing with you since the day Harvey's been born to prove I'm as powerful as you. I've been competing since the moment we got married to prove I can make as much money as you and I can be as powerful as you, and I am sorry that I have been competing with you for 8 years. And the last thing he asked me to surrender was my identity. I'm telling you, when I lost my job, I literally had to look at my Instagram bio and be like, is this still true about me? Like, these stupid things that I had identified myself as like the marketer and the worker and all these things. And that surrender, that day there at that retreat of saying, these things matter and this is what God's plan is, and I rest in that, and that is good.
I would say for myself, surrender was fearful. It was scary because I didn't know. There was the unknown. It's funny how Hannah was talking about, her different things, and it caused me to remember times in my life where I too didn't want to be a mom. I did not grow up in a church, but when I came to Akron, I found God, and all I wanted to do was just serve and to do different things. And I remember when I began to start serving in the church, in my prayer time, God told me, I want to call you home, because a few short time after I was serving at the church, I got married. And when I got married, it was like, okay, that's my boyfriend, because it was so funny. When we first got married, my husband told me, he was like, December, I am your husband, I am not your boyfriend. So it was like, and I would say, thinking about surrendering, and that in itself, it was a surrender. We went to church. I said we didn't date, but I knew him because we was in prayer time together. We were doing different things together. And I never forget, it was a Wednesday, and our pastor came to us and said, well, Brother Tarek, how long are you going to walk around Sister December? And he said, well, what you doing Saturday? And all I said was yes. Now, the December growing up would have never said yes. First of all, I'm trying to study you. What's going on? I don't know anything about you. We haven't been together. But that moment, because I was so in love with God and I had experienced who he really was, I just said yes. And 14 years later, it's been amazing. Now, was I scared on my wedding day? Yes. I was standing outside of the church doors like, I don't know what he's going to, if he kissed me, is he going to try to stick his tongue in my mouth? I don't know, like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do? But it was so beautiful. It was the most beautiful thing, because it was like, all I wanted was God to be there, and his presence was there. I know that it was like, even on our wedding night, and I guess I'm going deep. At that time, I was on my flow, and I was like, he's going to want to, do the wifely duty thing. And I'm like, he's going to get upset. But man, it was so beautiful. It was like I told him, he said, listen, he said, I got a lifetime to do this. We can wait. And that in itself, like, broke some things, but I was scared the whole time. And then having my first child, like I said earlier, after having the ectopic pregnancy where they took the 1 tube, and, I didn't know if I would be able to have kids, and I was okay if I didn't have kids. But then getting pregnant, it's like I was so scared, is anything gonna happen? I didn't want to do anything, but I remember I was, serving God like you. I was doing a Bible study in Walsh, and this young man came to me. He said, God got you. He said, don't even worry about this. So even though it's like being obedient, I know she says it's being obedient to the next step, for me, it's always been fearful. Even today, it was fearful. Come up here and say, give out your whole life story was fearful. But I know that in the end, God will do an amazing thing that I don't know who it's for, who we're talking to, but it's going to be amazing. So also, as far as like surrendering what I thought in my mind of what people told me what a family is supposed to look like, what my kids are supposed to act like, how many kids should you have? Because growing up in my life, it was like, you get one, you have two, you do your work and you keep going. But I have 5 children. After my second child, I remember talking to my mom, and she was like, well, you don't need any more kids, because with every kid, you talking about every child I had, I don't think we had a job in our house, but God always provided. Even now, like my husband, he's not working right now, but God always provide. So my mom told me after my second one, y'all going through so many things, you don't need to have more children, wanted me to, get the tubes tied and all that kind of stuff. Doctors asking you when you're on the table, do you want to get your tubes tied? No. And right, and that thing, it was funny because that bothered my husband. He was like, why are you sitting here asking her the moment after she had this excruciating pain? Yeah, she gonna want to say she want her tubes tied. But God, thank you. But it's like if I would have listened to them, I would not have been able to have the joy of what it to be a mother or to be a wife. And then with my that was my third child, my second one, when she was born, beautiful, when I was saying about how, you have these ideals of what you want your family to be. Everyone is going to, go to school. Everyone is going to grow up and be prosperous. Everyone is going to do this. Listen, my daughter, she's 7 years old. She's 7 now, but when she was 3 years old, she was diagnosed with a rare kidney disease. And it took our family again for yet another rock, because it's like, oh my God, when I was younger, I wanted to have a family. I want that child. You gave it to me. Now you're going to take that away from me? And I got to think, but I just love God and how he was saying, listen, all your life you've been going through things. And my favorite scripture is Romans 8:28. All things will work for the Lord according to his purpose and according to his plan. That sometimes you're going to go through things in life, but it will prepare you for the next thing. And sure enough, it was like all the things that I've been through prepared me for that time when I heard, that my daughter had a rare kidney disease. And then, in my mind, I was thinking, well, maybe, sometimes if I wouldn't have had that child, then what? But man, if you could meet my beautiful daughter and how she's so full of life, I thank God that he allowed me to be able to have another child. Then with our last one, again, they were saying, December, you sure? Because, when are you going to start doing things for yourself? When are you going to start doing this? But one thing about me, I'm all about God. God, if you want me to have another baby, let's do this thing. You know what I mean? But it's like when you got outside forces, and people that is close to you, your friends and your family that is trying to tell you something totally against what God is saying, it's like sometimes you second guess yourself. But I want to say I thank God that I surrendered and did it, because we have 5 wonderful children that has truly taught me about what life is and allowed me to be able to see life in a new way. That is not about what you look like. That is not about what you say. That is not about, how you made up or not made up and what you're lacking. Our youngest son, he's been diagnosed with autism and he's nonverbal. So, the wonderful thing is that the first thing you want to hear your child say, mama or dad. But the fact that we haven't heard it yet, and I say yet, because another thing is I know that God can do exceedingly and abundantly above all that I can ask or think. And it's like sometimes we want to go through this life without challenges and without struggles. But what I love about God is that through these challenges and through these struggles that we learn, because, we want everything to be perfect. In those imperfections is beauty. I can say with my youngest child, I have learned to look at life in the eyes a whole different way. When he was 2, we just was rolling through the grass. Now, let me tell you something, Saints. I'm a girl from Philadelphia. We don't have a lot of grass. When I came to Ohio, I don't know about all this grass stuff, but all I know is that day I was able to really enjoy something different. Even in the midst of something that, something, because as soon as you say things like, kidney disease or autism, or you had this child, everybody want to be like, huh, but not me no more. It's like, all right, God, let's do this thing. How are you trying to teach me something different? And even though I'm scared and I don't know, let's go ahead and walk this thing out. So.
That's amazing. All right, when did I surrender to God's plan? I actually remember that day quite distinctly. It was February 22nd of 2015. Yes, only 4 years ago. Because Jennifer that you see sitting up here wasn't the Jennifer back then. She thought she was going to control everything. God wasn't controlling my life. I had it under control. I was going to do this. I was the pilot of my life. Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. Oh no, God bless you. My life fell apart like I hit when my grandmother passed away. And I made some very poor decisions, and I didn't care about anything that was going on. I went into a really, really bad depression, and I had bad relationships, and God had put somebody in my path back in 2010 because he knew then I was going to go through some things. And this believer, she kept chipping away at my trust issues, and I have some major trust issues. And to trust God's process, yeah, right. But I had learned over the years that God is good, and he had been with me all the time. I just was not listening. I did not want to see that he was there. And, sorry. And it's amazing the things that he has done in my life. And I was angry at him when he took my grandmother, and I saw my children, but I just didn't care. And that's sad to sit up here and say. My daughter's sitting out there, and it's, shoot, I said I wasn't going to do this. I said that it was easier to numb myself and to go through that numbing process than to give it over to the Lord. But something came in me, like my aunt, she came up the road, and back then she was telling me, God put your face in front of me, and I'm driving up from Philly to come and see you, and I'm looking at her yeah, freaking right. That wasn't a very Christian response to her, but that's what I said, but it wasn't freaking back then. And I said that to her, and I remember thinking to myself, whatever, she's just Bible thumping me and all this other stuff. And I was like, oh, Jennifer, and I just didn't want to hand over the reins. And even though I knew I was in a very, very bad place. And I had this really bad dream. You ever have those really evil dreams, those dreams that you wake up in a sweat and things were just not right in that dream? I'm talking God awful, not right. And it scared me so bad. I remember going to have coffee with Julie that Thursday, and I said, you need to call your husband. And she was like, okay. And I get on the phone with Kevin. I was like, I want baptized, and I want baptized now. And that Sunday is when I surrendered my life over to the Lord, and not one moment have I regretted it since. And going strong for him. I lead the midweek ministries for little kiddos at my church. I do Good News Club for CEF. I help with the youth leaders, so I have a lot to give, and I am continuing to grow in love with the Lord. So,
Awesome. Oh man, we have so much that I'm sure we could keep asking you, but we're running short on time, so I do want to kind of just ask this last question. There's several women in the audience, I'm confident, that are in a space of, hey, this isn't my plan, or this isn't what I was hoping. What would you say to them? How would you encourage them? You have kind of one final word or charge or encouragement. What would each of you say to those sitting in spaces of, hey, this wasn't my plan?
I would say that Satan will tell you lies. He will tell you lies over and over and over again. He will tell you that you are not worthy. He will tell you you are not good enough. he will tell you all kinds of crazy things. And like I was watching some of the conferences before, somebody said Satan was childish. You know what? Dang right, he's childish. He does not want you out there being a warrior for God, and you are. You are a warrior for God. You are not alone, and even though you are not in your plan, you can still do amazing things and not your plan and still be quite an anomaly for Christ.
I think I missed out on a lot of joy and cool things that the Lord was trying to teach me because I was so bitter about not being in a spot that wasn't my plan. And man, he was trying to get my attention in a lot of ways, to the point that like I had 2 strangers come up to me at Panera in the middle of all of this and asked if they could pray for me. And this man, who I have no idea who he is, looked at me and said, God is asking you to get off the stage. You'll get back on later, but he wants you to get off the stage and learn what it means to look at the little things. And I literally was like, wonder what that means, and kept on going. My job was literally to be on stage, and I like pretended like I didn't know what that meant. And when I look at that now, it's like God was so concerned, not with what I was doing, not with all of my frustration, but that my heart, I was going through the motions of being in his plan, but in my heart, I was still in my plan. The whole time I was like, how can I get back to work? How can I work this out? How can I figure this out? And now, honestly, ladies, I feel like he took everything that I valued most important so that I would refocus on what was really important. And it's so sweet. Like, I wake up now and I don't go to work, which is the weirdest feeling I've ever felt. But like, there's a joy. Like, my husband's like, I haven't seen this Hannah since before you got pregnant. And that makes no sense on paper because the things that I'm doing are things I never would have wanted. But being in his plan is good, and it's actually better.
I would want to say, I don't know what your stories are, I don't know what your challenges are, what things you've been dealing with, but this ain't it. This is not the end-all be-all. That God's plan has a great end and a great story. And I can say that because even though my beginning was rocky, it's wonderful to be married. It's wonderful to be a mom. It's wonderful to be a friend. It's wonderful to be the sister. And I love how, what this is. You don't have to have it all together. You don't have to have names, you don't have to have letters behind your name. You just being you. Just as they talking about the whole thing ripple, it was because of one person speaking into my life and encouraging me or giving me a smile when I need it or calling me when I need it. So just know that, listen, you are overcomers. You can do anything. Don't let the devil tell you just because you grew up in, this, you can't be this or you can't say different things because you did certain things when you were younger. You are an overcomer. Know that you are a fighter, and it's not just you, but it's the God in you that is fighting. You are not doing this thing by yourself. And 2, it's okay to be you. It's okay to be different. You don't have to be like the woman that's sitting next to you. This is your life. God has you all perfectly figured out for you. So you can do this. And know that it's okay to be fearful. Sometimes you're going to do things and it's not going to all be perfect. It's not going to be all put together. But just like Noah said, you get up on the stage or you get up in your house or you get up to cook that breakfast with your knees knocking and do it. And then 2, enjoy. Enjoy the little things. Sometimes we want to, prepare for this big thing on the end, or when I get this, or when we do this, or when we do that. Enjoy the moment that you have right there. That, wow, thank you, God, for giving me this breath because someone else don't got it. Or, God, I thank you for my child saying mama because every child can't say mama. Enjoy the little things. Enjoy your friend. And then 2, sometimes what helped me through is encouraging someone else. When I'm going through something or I was dealing with something, I will call my sister. How you doing today? I will pray for them. So sometimes it's not even about you. Sometimes to get you through whatever you're going through, you got to help someone else to get through. So know that, being a friend is an important thing. Like, we want to put things as a CEO is good or this one is good, but a mom is great. Being a daughter is wonderful. Being a friend is amazing. Those things to me are way better than having a title behind my name or how many conferences I have done. Because that ripple, And then it's the last thing. I never forget, I was at a job. And then know too, you are not just, when you at your jobs, you're just not on your job. You don't know who you're going to encourage. Because let me tell you, you are jewels. You are precious. Every last one of you in this place, you have been called to a purpose and the plan that God has for you. And don't think it's too small. I was a correctional officer, and I knew it was God that sent me there. And I went there, and all I did was read my Bible, but God opened the door for me to be able to encourage a sister. And that sister, in turn, not only changed her life and gave her life to God, but then she was living with a guy, stopped living with a guy, began getting married, and now she have a family of her own. You don't know the power that you have in just a simple hello, and just a simple sharing the word of gospel. And don't let God say that you can't do those things because of what you did and what your past is like. That's what he's for. Use that path, because all things are going to work together. All those things that you went through for a purpose and for a plan and for a time as this right now.